Welcome to the front page, the Racing Post show, looking at all the hot topics in the sport. This week, we're going to look back at some brilliant racing at York, some not so brilliant finishes, and potentially a big story to do with prize money. We've got a new face in the studio joining me today, Graeme Rodway, a front page debut. How excited are you?
Oh, you can't contain my excitement. When I came in the office this morning, I was just high-fiving everyone. I even saw Kitty Trice Bloodstocker coming in. I was like, I've never seen Kitty so often. I mean, I'm absolutely hyped to be here, as you can tell, James.
Well, we've seen you on a few tipping shows and your opinions have gone down quite interesting. So we're interested to see what racing politics...
I wouldn't say they've gone down well. I'd say, they've gone down interestingly.
Yeah,
you're probably right there.
Okay.
But we'll see. Yeah, my racing politics knowledge is not probably as strong as yours, James, but I'll do my best, mate.
Okay, well, a man who definitely has some interesting opinions is joining us as well. Over in Ireland, David Jennings. David, really interesting week at York. Got some good stories to go through. How's your week been? And you must have enjoyed the action. Watched it from afar last week.
Yeah, do you know what? It's the one festival left for me that I really want to go to. I've never been to York, and I'm almost embarrassed saying it, because you talk to anybody that's been and they say it's the best. It's the best for atmosphere, for the quality of racing, that it's top of the pops. So I'm embarrassed to say I've never been there. I keep putting it on my to-do list, so hopefully next year I'll get there. But what a week. It started, I always think, I know the likes of G-Rod and stuff, and as tipsters, we're always looking for, maybe value prices and, horses at bigger prices. But I always think when you have a big day like last Wednesday, when you have City of Troy, Los Angeles and the Line in Winter, when the big horses do their business, it does add to the occasion sometimes. And last Wednesday was one of those occasions where the big horses did their business, and I thought it was thoroughly enjoyable.
Yeah, brilliant week. I'll hold you to that. It's not quite the best, David. You know it's Cheltenham, and we'll hold you to that as well. Right,
always Cheltenham.
We'll kick off straight at the show. And Graeme, as you're the newbie on the show, you're going to tell us what happened at York last week and some of the highlights.
Yeah, it was a great week, wasn't it? I mean, it's hard not to mention City of Troy straight off the bat, isn't it? We were so impressed with him. And it was just the way that he did it, wasn't it? I thought it was total dominance. Today Ryan Moore, I think, said in the paper that they can't go, there's not a pace that's too quick for him, they can't go quick enough for him. It did kind of look a bit like that, didn't he? He ran a course record time, absolutely smashed the track record of See the Stars, albeit, yes, I think the second and maybe even the third Ghostwriter beat the old time. So the ground, to a certain extent, might have played its own. And the wind might have played a part there. And there was another course record time later on in the day as well, wasn't there? However, when I always wins in a fast time, I always think it's important to interrogate kind of how they did it. And I always think there's more merit in a horse that's made all the running and achieved a fast time than one that's coming off of it. Because if you're making a really fast time after making the running, you must have raced close to a really strong pace the whole way. And City of Troy did that, but it didn't look like he was going ridiculously fast, did he? He just makes this even pace of his look normal, and he just took all the other horses out of their comfort zone, apart from Calandagan, who of course ran the fastest furlong in the race to make up a lot of ground from the rear. But I still think that the best horse won by quite some way. And what was in behind them, I think we remain to be seen. Ghostwriter was a good third, and like we say, would have beaten the old course record. But the first two looked really good. I'm not sure about the rest behind them, because there was only one all-age Group 1 winner in it. That was the Japanese horse. I think he might have even just been the St Ledger.
Japanese St Ledger winner, yeah.
St Ledger, and there was a Blue Stocking of won her St Ledger against Fillies. So I know a lot of people said it was a really strong Juddmonte, and it was deep because there were so many runners. But quite what was in behind them in terms of quality, apart from Calandagan, who was obviously top class himself, I'm not sure.
Yeah, you can definitely pick holes. So the next question is the interesting one. Is it, as Aidan O'Brien said in the paper today, it's going to be the Breeders' Cup Classic, a switch to dirt. Really interested to hear Aidan O'Brien today saying, which he spoke to DJ, who we'll come to, sort of saying that the early pace of race, he'll have no problem with it. Our race day editor, Ron Wood, saying City of Troy makes no appeal from a betting perspective. So it's a really interesting sort of looking towards the end of the season, what this City of Troy is going to produce in such a completely different race. You're a tipping man. Would you be with the favourite City of Troy in a Breeders' Cup Classic, or would you want to take him on?
I think he's absolutely outstanding colt. We can all see that. Whether he can go and beat the Americans in their own backyard on dirt, on their own surface, is another question. I mean, We had Jamie McBride, one of the Hills traders, on Saturday, and he said this could be a good time for City of Troy because the American horses do not look that strong. There's no star 3-year-old out there. There's no star older horse. If there's an opening for a European to win it could be this year, and maybe we have got the right horse. And the Son of Justify obviously was a good dirt horse himself, has got loads of early pace, seems to have no problem going a fast early pace. But we've seen it before, haven't we?
We have, yeah.
We've seen us go over there on dirt. We think we've got a chance, and then they just get absolutely walloped by the Americans, and they end up finishing out the back of the telly. So I certainly wouldn't be backing him, but it would not surprise me at all if he were to go and do it.
Okay, we'll go over to David. Enjoyed your reaction to it. A dollop of wow was how you described City of Troy on Wednesday. First off, what did you make of performance on Wednesday, and also that question about the Breeders' Cup? Having spoke to Aidan O'Brien yesterday.
Yeah, going back to Wednesday, Graeme hit the nail on the head there. Like, there is something just a little bit different about a horse who makes all in a big race. Like, when you go back to, like, obviously it was a different league to this type of thing, but like, I remember Make a Stand winning a champion hurdle, and it's kind of like, there's just something different. It's like, because it's unusual, and you're doing all the donkey work, and you have to keep going. And as I said in my piece, it took balls and guts from the horse and the rider, because this was as big a high pressure ride as Ryan Moore has had probably in his career. Like, this is the horse that's been built up to be something that we didn't think he was for quite a while. The last time he made the run was in the Guineas, and like, that ended in disaster. So to do what he did, took balls, and it was a terrific ride. It was a funny sort of a race. Like, when you go through it, like, Israr, Ambient Friendly and Alflela ran absolute stinkers. Now, I mean stinkers. Like, for horses like that to be beaten, I think Israr was beaten over 13 lengths, Ambient Friendly was beaten nearly 18 lengths, and Alflela, who was a remarkable drifter, like, from, you know, sevens a couple of days beforehand to drift out to 14-1, 20-something on the exchanges. Like, for him to be beaten and not raise a gallop, to beat nearly 24 lengths, like, a lot of horses ran absolute stinkers for one reason or another that I can't put my finger on. The only one to really give any sort of chase was Calandagan. And it's funny, before the race I was watching Racing TV, and Martin Dixon was on it. Martin Dixon is just one of my heroes. And he started saying how he thought Ghost Rider would run a cracker. And I was going, Martin, you've lost the plot here. Like, this horse could finish last. And again, he was proved right. He ran a cracker. So I do think it was a funny sort of a race, given how many horses ran poorly in the race. But Calandagan is obviously, as Seb Saunders said on Saturday, a worldie. So I think it was a strong performance, and he is an exceptional colt. Chatting to Aidan yesterday for the piece in the paper today, look, it's all Breeders' Cup now. He's not going for the Irish Champion Stakes. He's going for the Breeders' Cup. He wants to give him the best possible preparation for that. So obviously, you know, they've had horses being brought over there before, so they know what it takes now to try and, you know, I suppose achieve immortality for a horse like City of Troy. So the likelihood is that he's going to go to Suddle. It's one of those, I'd say G-Rob would probably agree with me here. I think City of Troy will either win the Classic or finish last. I would be shocked if he finished second or third, you know, that kind of way. I think he'll either take to it and win brilliantly, or it'll be an absolute horror show. I think it's going to be one or the other. I don't think there's any in between. But look, from a betting point of view, I don't think betting matters here. This is, look, I know we're all tipsters and we all kind of like to get a nice winner here and there, but this is one occasion where betting really doesn't matter. I couldn't care less whether City of Troy was 20-1 or 1-20. It's just one of these stages in our lifetime where we've got a horse who has won all these big races, was champion European 2-year-old, has won the Derby, has won the Juddmonte, has won the Eclipse, and now he's actually favoured for a Classic. And it's not very often we're going to get a horse from Ireland that's favoured for a Classic. So I think we need to kind of soak it up and say, just join the ride, kind of. I know you can say Ron Wood, who's brilliant at what he does, is saying that he makes no appeal. That's fair enough. I can see why he might make no appeal to somebody. But this is a kind of a once-in-a-lifetime type of thing, and I just can't wait, and I'm going to be there as well, which makes it all the more exciting.
Yeah, brilliant. And just on the achievement that it is, I mean, we've seen Aidan O'Brien do some remarkable things in British racing, in Irish racing, overseas. I mean, this would really be up there, wouldn't it? To take a Derby winner and go and win on the dirt in the Breeders' Cup, that would be right up there from his list of achievements. Oh,
it wouldn't be right up there. It'd be miles clear of the second achievement. This is it. This is the crowning moment of his career if he can do it. And I think it's that you kind of got the giddiness from them last season when they started talking about this is our Frankel and all this kind of stuff. the giddiness started back then, and I think it's all been leading up to Del Mar. I think when you have Aidan and you have Coolmore, who have achieved so much in the sport, there's only a certain amount of things that they haven't achieved, and this is one of them. And when you've got the chance, they know they're winners. They know you've got to grab it when a chance like this comes along. So it's gone swimmingly since the Derby. Hopefully it can continue in that way. But it's just brilliant to have something like that to look forward to for the next few months. And touch wood, everything goes according to plan in the build up to it.
Exactly, and touch wood, I'm sure, DJ, we'll stick with you on this one. A few days later, we might see some Irish horses in the Melbourne Gold Cup. We saw Magical Zoe win the Ebor this week. Really impressive, gets a win and you're in. Whether connections go, we'll wait and see. And Vauban, of course, beaten in the race last year, 10-1 favourite in the British Firms. How do you assess those two chances and likely perhaps to go down under?
Yeah, we could run the Melbourne Cup in the Curragh or Leopardstown the way it's going because Magical Zoe, Vauban, Crystal Black, maybe Harbour Wind, like we could actually have 4 of the top 6 in the betting for the Melbourne Cup, which is hard to believe. With Magical Zoe, it was one of the rare things in life I actually called. I just thought that the race itself would suit Magical Zoe in the Ebor. And for anybody that actually backed her, it was one of them rare occasions where at all stages in the race you were like, God, this is actually going really well. Something needs to go drastically wrong here for her not to win. And I wrote in the paper on Sunday about Billy Lee. Like, Billy Lee is not a name that, people in Britain will know Billy Lee and they'll have heard of him and they know he went close to winning the Jockeys Championship last year, but they won't know a huge amount about him, whereas we're watching him every day of the week, and himself and Colin Keane have set such a high standard over here. And the thing I love about both of them is they are just so cool. It's like, nothing seems an effort or nothing seems too big of an occasion. It's like they're just in the back garden sitting up on a rocking horse, like every time they go out to the track. And I just love that attitude. It's real kind of laid back. Sure, look, if it happens, it happens. And sure, so be it if it doesn't happen kind of thing. And I think that's a lovely attitude to have for jockeys. And Billy is just a smashing fella. I said in the piece, like Paddy Toomey, anytime you ask him about Billy Lee, world class. That's all he keeps saying, world class, world class. And I think on Saturday he showed that he could ride anywhere in the world. He's just glorious, glorious rider. So it's delighted for him, delighted for Henry de Bromhead, delighted for all connections to Magical Zoe. And as you said, the Melbourne Cup, look, I was shocked. I'm talking too much now, so I'll shut up in a second. But I was shocked after last year's Melbourne Cup that the immediate reaction from Leclerc Sutton camp was, we can't wait to go back with Vauban. I thought it would be, we are never going back again. I am sick of the sight of the place. It's been 6 weeks wasted, and never let me see Werribee or Flemington again. But it was the complete opposite. I remember ringing Willie like soon enough after the race, and it was like, no, you didn't see the real Vauban on the day. The inclination seems to be he was there too long. And we heard Ruby, if you just listen to Ruby speaking about Vauban on ITV, he said he went over and he said the heat really got to Vauban. I think it was irritating him because he had been there so long. And then on the day of the Melbourne Cup, it was a really warm day, and he reckons he could have got sunstroke. They are going to do things so different. He's going to go down in second shipment. They're going to get him to where he was for that piece of work he did in the lead up, maybe 10 days before the Melbourne Cup this year. So they know what they have to do to get him to that stage 10 days before the race this year. So he'd be like that on the race this year. And if you're talking me Magical Zoe, Crystal Black, Harbour Wind or Vauban, I know the weights haven't come out yet, but I think I'd still be a Vauban man.
Okay, very interesting, and definitely interesting that they're going to learn from their mistakes on last year. I mean, we also had in the week Numthorpe Bradsell back to his best. We had some clues for the St Ledger. I mean, Graeme, what are we looking at with a view to the rest of the season? What caught your eye?
Yeah, I mean, Bradsell obviously was the highest rated horse going into the race, but yet he wasn't favourite. Asphora was favourite for the race, and Bradsell won well, I thought. It was a little bit unsatisfactory last week with the draw, wasn't there? I thought personally it ruined a few races, and Numthorpe being one of them. I know that Connections of Big Evs and a few others have come out complaining, saying, well, they were at a huge disadvantage being towards the stand side. I think the clerk of the course said that they had a bit of an issue with the wind and the watering system, meaning that sometimes the water was getting blown away from the far side rail, hence why it maybe was a bit faster on that side. I did think that did put a little bit of a dampener on the week for me, because even like Magical Zoe, I think was drawn 1 in the Ebor. In the sprint races, you just simply couldn't win if you were drawn anything over 10. And I don't like it when that happens. You know, I like to see horses running against each other on their merits. I know as a punter you can factor that in, but it just
element of frustration, isn't there?
Yeah,
because,
it was unsatisfactory, wasn't it? I thought, whether it be their own fault or not. I mean, it's happened at York in the past, but not to that extent, not to the point where I've really noticed it like we did last week. Even in the races on the round course, like I think the Equator ran second. I think he might have come from a wide draw. There were certainly one or two horses in that Melrose that came from a wide draw and ran remarkable races considering how far out they came from. But yeah, Vauban for the Melbourne Cup. To my eye, he looks like the sort of horse who wants a real strong pace, and even the other day he almost down tools in front, didn't he? Whether he didn't stay or whether he was just waiting around for other horses to come to him. I mean, he nearly got caught by the big outsider El Nair. I just got a feeling the faster they go, the better he'll go through his race, the more he'll be suited by it. And they often say you need a 1.5 horse to win that Melbourne Cup. You know, I'm lucky enough to have been there. It's usually fast ground. It's a very tight track. So it does tend to put the emphasis on speed rather than stamina. And that might suit Vauban, I think, because he is such a powerful traveller. So I'll look forward to seeing him back at the Melbourne Cup.
Yeah, just word on the ledger. We saw a few clues.
Yes.
I thought Illinois was interesting. I see he's now favourite for it, given his good second. And Aidan O'Brien immediately after the race was saying, well, that's possibly a clue. Los Angeles, who won the race, the Great Voltigeur, could go there. Still a bit uncertain where he'll go.
Yeah.
Strong opinion on.
We actually came away from the Great Voltigeur with more questions about the St Ledger than we did answers, which is not usually the case.
No,
you know, that is usually the number one trial for the St Ledger, and we usually learn a lot about what's going to happen. Whereas with Los Angeles beaten Illinois, giving him so much weight, I thought it was a hell of a performance from Los Angeles, and I thought, well, if he lines up in the Ledger, he'll definitely win. But maybe they think he's too good to run over 1.6 miles, and they want to go for the Arc, especially if they're going to send City of Troy over to America. They've obviously got loads of cards because they've also got Jan Bruegel, haven't they, which won the Gordon Stakes, which is another of the big Ledger trials. I would have thought that that Jan Bruegel would have been the number one over Illinois if he goes there, but the market's suggesting otherwise, isn't it? The market's suggesting Illinois might be the one. He ran a huge race from the front, and he was coming back at the finish. Looks like he'll stay forever. I just don't know. It's probably getting to that point in the season where Aidan O'Brien's looking, going, where can we put all of our cards to get the most wins? Almost a bit like Willie Mullins at Cheltenham. You know, where can we put these horses to win the most races? And no doubt the lads will decide.
Exactly. Final question for you. We also saw the Lion in Winter win very well. Now clear favourite for the Guineas and the Derby. Is he going to be the best 2-year-old this season, or are we going to see something better? Is he going to be a good? Is he going to be even better as a 3-year-old?
He looks like it, didn't he? Going into that race, I remember
looks a hot race, isn't it? With Rawling Court in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Rawling Court looked like he had more speed,
and he could be still a very nice horse.
He could be, yeah. And he ended up in the middle of the track, didn't he? Which wasn't always the place to be last week. But maybe we didn't know it at the time because it was the first day and one of the early races on the first day. I like the way the Lion in Winter went through his race. He travelled really well and finished off very strongly. I think he's the best 2-year-old we've seen. Definitely the best 2-year-old colt we've seen this season. Yeah. But they're taking kind of weird route with him, aren't they? Talking about going to this Goff's £1 million race, which I don't remember them running too many of their best 2-year-old colts in that.
Might be worth cross over to DJ. DJ, you just come in on the Lion in Winter. That is an interesting sort of way.
Just a new race.
It's a new race,
and it's worth $1 million. Right? So obviously it's for horses that were bought in Goffs, and you can win $1 million. So it makes perfect sense. Wouldn't read too much into the fact that it's not a Dewhurst or whatever Royal Lodge. It's just a good piece of place, and he'll be probably 1 to 3. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it does make kind of sense to me. I love him. I loved 21 on debut when he did so much kind of wrong and was so green, and what he did inside the final 200 yards was extraordinary. I thought of the Curragh that day, and then like the other day he just looked so straight. He just looked like he loved galloping and he loved doing what he was doing. The vibes I was getting beforehand was that he might not be the best Ballydoyle juvenile at the moment, but he would definitely be by the end of the season that he was only a baby. So if he's able to do that in August, God only knows what he's going to be able to do next May. So I'd say he's going to be ranked right up there. He'd definitely be in the top 2 or 3 Ballydoyle juveniles this season.
Right, well there you go. That's a thought given what ammunition they've got already. Final bit of housekeeping. Crowd was down, 3.8 drop, 70,000 across the week, but a really good on the whole. I mean, David mentioned at the top of the show, a really good meeting and just quality throughout all 4 days.
Yeah, I've been to the meeting a few times. I think they said the clock tower enclosure was down a little bit, possibly because of the dodgy weather towards the end of the week.
And it's as William Darby said, it's a tough environment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which every racecourse is experiencing.
But it's still a great week, isn't it? And coming right in the middle of the summer, one of the best weeks of the year without a doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we'll go on to our next story, but first a little bit on the WhatsApp Insider. Okay, on to our second story, and we're going to cross over to Ireland, where David's going to tell us about some of the Finnish fiascos in British racing. Certainly frustrated you, and a really punchy column in the newspaper last week.
Yeah, look, it's something that has frustrated me for quite a while. I am very much frustrated by this easing up showboating style that seems to be a relatively new phenomenon. I can't remember too much years and years ago, but obviously it is, and maybe I just can't remember. But it was basically in the last 3 weeks we have had 3 incidents of jockeys who should have won races and didn't. It started at Bath in, I think it was the first Friday of the month, when Alec Walensky was on a horse called Power of Twins, kicked a few lengths clear at Bath. Didn't look right or left, eased up for about 5 strides, and then was caught by Love Struck Romeo. An apt name, given he had his heart broken. And then it was on to James Doyle. And this one was probably the one that frustrated me most at Windsor on Monday night. He was on a horse called No Retreat, an odds-on favourite in a maiden. So James Doyle, to me, is exactly what we need in this game. He is, a terrific rider who is a fantastic ambassador for the sport. And every time he's interviewed, I just think he's fantastic. And we need more James Doyles. Seems a thoroughly likeable chap. And, we can't have enough James Doyles. That's James Doyle. But he managed to worm his way out of a 28-day ban for easing up on No Retreat. He came up with the excuse, and maybe he's right. Only James will know whether he's telling the truth or not. And he said basically that, the horse wobbled and, he was lugging and he got spooked by the winning line, which is fine. He was an inexperienced horse. But I just feel that James eased down a couple of strides before the line. And if he had kept pushing the horse, like, it wasn't as though the horse was going to win by 2 lengths. There was no way the horse was going to win by 2 lengths. He eased down thinking he had won the race, in my opinion, and then the horse on the near side, because obviously at Windsor, as we know, it kind of goes that way, and the horses are looking at the bend in front of them. But that should be in the jockey's mind, I think. I think, James should know that there is a bend coming up. I need to keep this horse straight, so I need to keep pushing. And the stewards believed him, and he got away without a 28-day ban, which is, great for James. But I just fear to me, this is a thing that we need to stamp out. We need to just get rid of it now and, make sure that it's a once in a lifetime type thing, that this only happens once every 10 years rather than 3 times in 3 weeks. So we had Callum Shepherd, who was very unlucky really to get an 18-day ban because he dead heated. He eased up in the very final stride. I think the momentum of the second last stride probably took him to the line anyway, and it was a dead heat at Kempton. He got 18 days for that. I still think it was probably good that he got banned because it will just put it in jockeys' minds that we can't ease up. So I think we need to create a culture where we need to get riders into the habit of riding past the line. You speak to any pony rider starting off, they'll say, any trainer or any person that they're riding for, The start is your responsibility. You need to get a good start, and you ride out to the line. You have to ride out to the finish. Don't get caught. And it just frustrates me because James Doyle, obviously, Callum Shepherd, Alec Walensky, they would have been brought in to describe and to basically explain their actions in riding in a finish, right? Which is all well and good, but it just strikes me. Imagine if like a fella was clean through in a soccer match and a tackle came in, and then you're interviewing the defender that made the tackle, and he's going, well, my left foot slipped, and you know what I mean? I didn't mean to connect with him, and I didn't really connect with him, and he's given his explanation. No, the referee makes the decision. The stewards should be making the decision. It shouldn't be anything to do with the jockeys whatsoever. It should be stewards centralised, I would say, professional stewards centralised in London or in Dublin, and they should be making decisions saying, look, this is a zero tolerance approach. You ease down, you get your, as I propose, 40 days rather than 28, just to add that extra bit of a deterrent that makes them say, no, I really can't do this. Because whatever about horses, we see it day in, day out, where horses are in a nice few lengths clear and jockeys are easing down, trying to give the horse the easiest possible race, and that's all well and good. But this idea of a driving finish, or you're a length up or 3/4 of a length up, and then you're easing down, you're winning by a head or a neck. And we seen last year, of course, Pat Cosgrove on Concord, who got completely caught out at Chelmsford. It just infuriates me because it's hard enough for owners, trainers, jockeys and punters to win races, and when you throw away races that you should be winning, I think it's inexcusable. You can say it's human error, and of course it's human error, but I think it's something we need to clamp down on, and we need to do it now, because if this culture gets in, I don't know how we're going to get rid of it. So I would say kill it now, that if the jockey eases down and gets caught, it's not like, oh my God, that's happened 3 times in the last 3 weeks. It should be, oh my God, that's happened. The last time that happened was 2024, and it's now 2033. That's my opinion. I don't know. What do you think, G-Rod?
Yeah, I mean, it's the most frustrating thing for a punter, isn't it?
Yeah.
You have a bet, you spend ages picking out your selection, you put your hard-earned cash down on it, you get it right, but yet you don't get paid out because the jockey mistook the winning line, or he's taking it a little bit too easy. I mean, it's just unforgivable from a punter's perspective. We've seen it in the past. We've seen claimers make mistakes and young riders make mistakes. But as DJ's just said, we're getting to the point where it's becoming quite common.
Too common.
Too common, yeah. And how much extra is it going to take out of the horse to just keep pushing it to the line, hands and heels? I mean, we're not talking about flogging these horses, right into the line. We're just talking about making sure that we keep them switched on. And we had Seb Sanders on Saturday on the show. He said, as soon as you start easing down a horse, the horse is going to switch off. Yeah. So you've just got to keep pushing them out, even hands and heels. And you're not giving them that much more of a harder race by doing so. So it makes total nonsense to me that the jockeys are easing down in that way.
I thought the most ironic line from James in his testimony was, they're not machines, horses, they're not machines. Yeah, they're not, James. That's why you have to push them out, and they stop when they think they've done enough. So it just frustrates me. I just think it's something we can control, if you know what I mean. I think there are other things in the sport where it's so hard to have a kind of a zero tolerance approach with certain aspects of the sport, but I just think this is one thing that can be easily clamped down, and we just need to do it.
Yeah. Just a couple of things to pick up on. Callum Shepherd, you mentioned, dead heated on Wednesday night, 18-day ban. He has since come and defended his ride in the Racing Post. He said his hands were very much forward, although his body came up, which is what the stewards reported.
He was unlucky, wasn't he, James?
He in the context of what's happened this week, he will feel very, very unlucky. And he told the Racing Post, I don't feel I could have done anything more. He can appeal that. We're not sure if he will yet, but we'll wait and see. He also questioned the photo finish, having dead heated, put a tweet out on X, or however you're meant to say the social media platform you are. But the BHA has since responded to that, saying that their pitch quality is more reliable. Now, I just want to go back to another point that DJ made there. Seb in the studio, really interested to listen to him on the Morning Post on Saturday, mentioned what DJ's just said, a centralised stewarding system, and the idea that sports decisions are made by a referee, a judge, whatever, and there isn't an input from the sportsmen or participants. Is that the way you'd like to see stewarding to go? Not just for this case, but in others as well?
You have a feeling that maybe in 10 years' time, that might be what is happening. Yeah, that's the way that most other sports have gone, haven't they? Not only, racing, but obviously in football, you've got everyone goes back to Stockley Park now for the VAR. So I think it's the same in NFL. There's like someone in New York who does the VAR there. So it's getting to the point where, because the technology is so good now, and you can get pictures across to people so quickly, you could have a set of super stewards.
Yeah.
Who have been very experienced, been doing the job for a long time, don't necessarily need to be at the track, who could maybe do steward 3 meetings at the same time. Who knows? DJ made the point about jockeys having an input. That's always been the case in Britain, hasn't it? And we've seen recently stewards' inquiries being broadcast on TV is quite interesting to listen to, isn't it? No doubt about it. But
particularly the Paddy Brennan one, that was a fascinating one, wasn't it? Where he was.
Whether that should be allowed is another question altogether, isn't it?
It shouldn't. It shouldn't. It's not another question. It shouldn't. Like, you can't. Like, the obvious thing. If I was, 8 stone lighter and I was a jockey, like, one of the criteria of being a jockey now is you need to be able to lie really well. So you need to be able to go in and fight your case in the Stewards' Inquiry and say, well, even though I actually don't believe this is what I'm going to say. I would have won that race. Of course I would have won that race. If that horse didn't cut me off, I would have won easily. Sure, I had loads of horse underneath me, even though the horse could have been completely empty. So of course jockeys are going to lie. It's in their nature to do their best for the owner and trainer they're riding to. So are we supposed to listen to them in the steward's room and think every word that's coming out of their mouth is completely gospel? Absolutely not. Most of it is utter nonsense because they want to get the race, and that's exactly what they should be doing. But it should be taken out of their hands. I feel like my voice has gone completely high pitched.
Do you think it makes a difference though, DJ? Do you think it makes a difference what these jockeys actually? Do you think the stewards actually listen to them?
I was going to go back to DJ and say, okay, well, there'll be people who will be watching this home who very much agree with you. Just to play devil's advocate with you there, DJ. People may come back and say, well, racing is different to football because there's an animal involved who obviously can't share their, you can't speak to the animal. That's the key difference between this and other sports like NFL and that's the only thing I could come back to you and say. How would you respond if you asked that?
That's fine, but I would like to think we'd be able to get intelligent stewards who have an in-depth knowledge of the game and are able to factor in the horse and the movement of the horse and everything like that, because it's okay to say a horse was hanging and a horse was doing that. We should be able to visually see that. We shouldn't need a jockey to tell us that a horse was hanging. We should be able to see it, and stewards should be able to see it. I think it just doesn't sit well with me. And your first question was do I think that jockeys actually have an influence in the Stewards' Inquiry? I've watched Stewards' Inquiries, and I suppose the one that strikes me most of all was the Ledger a couple of years ago. It was
Simple Verse,
and was it Shamie Heffernan was riding the Ballydoyle?
I think so, yeah. One which was eventually overturned in appeal anyway.
Yeah, and on the day, I think, what was it, Shamie, or was it somebody else? It was Colin O'Donoghue, I think, was it? And I think on the day I remember thinking, one jockey, it's a while ago now, but I just remember thinking, and it's always the case in Stewards' Inquiries, you're listening to a jockey and one of them is just brilliant. Like, one of them you're going, oh my God, if I ever have a parking fine in court, I want you to come and stand up for me. Like, so some of them are just really good talkers, and I think it does influence the stewards, because if you've got a jockey who's a terrific speaker and who has charisma and charm, like James Doyle, who I said has got great charm, and like he comes in and tells you something, you're kind of going, well, actually, yeah, he made a really good point there, and it's in the back of your head, and then you start doubting your original thoughts, and I don't think that's a good thing. I think stewards should have the power to stick to what they believe in, and if we create a culture like that, I think it could have a positive long-term impact on the sport.
Yeah, and like anything, there's going to be winners and losers, which is inevitable in sport. And I suppose the other thing as well is that stewards' inquiries are quite lengthy as well, which I've been on track a few times and delayed, and people queuing up for their slips, and that's always something that bugs me. It's different to this.
Yeah, I mean, I've been at tracks when the stewards' inquiry has actually gone on beyond the next race, which seems absolutely crazy to me. But in terms of stewards, like, do we have to have ex-jockeys as stewards? Or do we? or do we have non-ex-jockeys? Because the first thing the jockeys are going to say is, well, these stewards have never ridden in any race in their life. Well, how are they supposed to decide without us telling them? So where do you set the line? Who do you say is a good steward? How do you decide who's a good steward? How do you decide who's a bad steward? It's just a difficult question to answer.
It's fun, this racing politics. Great,
I'm
isn't
going to
it?
get into it now.
Go on, David.
One other aspect that I see creeping in from being at race meetings, they're calling stewards' inquiries far too late at the moment. So the minute a race is over, if the stewards decide, okay, there's something to look at here, an inquiry should be called. I have been at race meetings in Ireland where it could be 3, 4, 5 minutes after the race where the inquiry is called. And that seems to be relatively new. Now, on track, they might know themselves that they're having an inquiry internally to stewards, and then they'll announce it publicly. But that should be made public knowledge straight away, because there have been incidences where you're watching a race and you're going, oh my God, there's serious interference here. I can't believe they haven't called an inquiry. The horses are back almost in the winner's enclosure. Next thing you hear the bing bong for a steward's inquiry. And you're going, how did this not happen 10 seconds after the race? So I think that is one aspect that does need to be looked into. We need to be calling the inquiries earlier.
Yep, plenty to unpack there, DJ, and we'll move swiftly on to our final story. It involves Peter Savill, the man behind Premier Racing in Britain. He's back to try and rectify another of its key problems, prize money. So we found out this week he launched the Professional Racing Association, a group of around 150 trainers and other racing professionals, which is looking to put pressure on racecourses to reveal their revenues. This is so they can determine how much of it goes into prize money. So as it stands, 5 tracks have got the approval from the Premier Racing Association. That's York, Ripon, Hamilton, Fakenham and Plumpton, and they are trying to get as many tracks on board to disclose their revenues, a topic which we've discussed plenty of times on the show. So what the PRA are saying is that they are saying to its members, the trainers, if the racecourses haven't got on board, to exclude meetings or fixtures, don't enter horses from 2025 from racecourses which don't disclose its total revenue, or meetings that aren't putting in a third of their total revenue into prize money. So if you don't say, or you're not putting a third in, don't have runners there. A real amount of pressure. Its members have already agreed that from 2025, it is going to only support meetings that have approval from the PRA. And Peter Savill is hoping this will end the incessant bickering between horsemen and racecourses and wants to create a bit more of a partnership. Graeme, we're into some really juicy racing politics here, aren't we?
I'm looking forward to this.
This is a start of a really significant problem in British racing. It's a positive start. How this will go, wait and see. It's the early days of this, but a positive start.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you're just calling for transparency, aren't
Yes,
they? Which
exactly.
is key, isn't it? To any negotiation, really. And we don't know, do we? What the tracks are making and where the money's going, and it will make things easier. You would hope.
Yeah.
However, what we don't want to see, of course, is half the races being left with no runners in because all the trainers are pulling their horses out. So it's a balancing act, isn't it? I mean, I only remember Peter Savill from being Celtic Swings owner. I was saying on the way in. So that's how far back we're going here, James. I mean, it's amazing to think that he's still about knocking his ideas about, but we'll see how it works out. Won't we?
So in the piece written by Bill Barber in Sunday's paper, Savill said that he hopes another 5 to 7 tracks to be on board by the end of the week, and PRA are in communication with another 25, although they're not the Jockey Club and ARC yet, which will be interesting. ARC, of course, had said they didn't want to give out their revenue details. Jockey Clubs have said they'd be open to it, so it's going to be interesting how it comes. I mean, prize money is a real challenge, as we know, but the point that Peter Savill made is that for trainers who are running businesses with a view to the future, and they don't know how much money they're going to be competing for, how can they create a business model? How can they sort of buy horses and stock for years ahead, not knowing whether they're going to get returns or not, or if owners are indeed going to get their money back from it? There's a lot of reason to think that actually, from a financial perspective, trainers do need that bit of understanding about what they're competing for and what the income is going to be.
Yeah, of course. Otherwise, you're just totally reliant on rich owners, aren't you, to prop up the game, which in many ways has been the case for years anyway, hasn't it? With some really rich owners investing in racing, which we've been very thankful for, of course. But realistically, going forward, we can't base a whole industry on the idea that rich owners are going to prop us up. So it sounds like a positive step, doesn't it? Like you say, there's nothing wrong with a bit of transparency. But I just hope it doesn't end in disaster with all the trainers putting all their runners out.
No, it's interesting to put a pressure on. DJ watching from afar, I mean, incessant bickering. I think we can all relate to that. It certainly seems that way. It's a positive step, but you must be with Graeme to a certain extent. There's that bit of pressure. I wonder how that's going to go down.
Yeah, you'd like to think that it's a real step in the right direction, because like surely racecourses should be revealing their P&L. Like surely it should be something for public consumption. And if it is the start of something, I think it's certainly a positive. Like, because there is a lot of kind of cloak and daggers around racing, and slowly but surely we're gradually getting more stuff in the public eye. We're gradually finding our way and becoming more ethical, I suppose. So look, it sounds to me like it's a positive. I presume most people would be thinking in the same way. So let's just see what way it plays out, because I don't think it's going to be straightforward.
No, certainly won't be straightforward, as nothing is. And also worth mentioning as well, this comes at a point with the media rights continues to rumble on indefinitely, was the way it was described on the last time Lee was sat in the chair. That's obviously a huge concern, and that's certainly going to add a bit of spice to that story as it rumbles on as well.
Certainly. Well, the problem that we've had in racing in the past, and the reason that I say I'm worried about the possibility of it being total boycotts, is that it's happened, hasn't it? You know, like you get these threats and you think that won't happen, and then before you know it, like you say, there's incessant bickering. One lot wants this, and then you end up with the sport being in a mess. You know, so let's just hope that we can all get together and like Peter does say there, end that incessant bickering. But I certainly wouldn't be surprised if it rankled on, because it usually does.
It usually does. Racing politics is fun, isn't it?
It's fun. I'm going to come back every week. Right.
Well, let's find out how you did on week one, because now give me the choice to decide what story gets on the front page. Every time Lee's in here, I criticise him because he picks his own story and puts it on the front page. I'm setting a standard for integrity and not going to do that.
You could be a steward.
I could be a steward.
We'll put you on the Super Steward panel.
I'll put her on the Super Steward. David, absolutely very passionate plea from the Finnish Fiasco there. I absolutely loved how passionate you went, and how pitched your voice went when you were speaking on it. I can tell
my voice broke in the middle of it.
Yeah, well, it's passion and determination, which is what we want to see, fighting spirit. But I think it's got to be York. I think, Graeme. I think you're going to take it on week one. Brilliant racing, City of Troy, as DJ rightly said, the chance to do something pretty special, and it was a week where we highlighted the best of racing, wasn't it? But a bit of draw bias. Really good crowds, a little bit down. Fantastic racing through and through. Good field sizes. And Ireland still winning our big races.
I have one final question for G-Rod. This is your final question, Graeme.
Fire away.
In your lifetime, where does City of Troy rank in the best flat horses you've ever seen? Is he in the top 3, the top 5, the top 10, the top 20, or the top 50?
Now you're talking, you see, because like...
Okay, is he in the top 3? No.
So does this include jumpers? Yeah, probably.
No, flat horses.
Oh, just flat horses. Okay. All right, well, I'm going to say he's in the top 15, and he might end up in the top 10 before he's out. If he wins a Breeders' Cup Classic, I think that gets him up there that gets him right up there, maybe in the top 3, DJ. But I've just seen so many... I said this earlier, I've just seen so many great horses, and I've almost been spoiled, and it's all a bit boring. Even watching City of Troy over and watching these Ballydoyle horses come out. The Lion in Winter might even be the next City of Troy, might he? What's the chances that the Lion in Winter is better than him?
You can't say that City of Troy is boring, because the narrative around him has been so intriguing, and this R. Frankel never gets tired. All the stuff about him, like, it means that every time he sets foot on a racetrack, it's like, oh my god, what on earth is going to happen here? And even going to York, it was like, oh my god, he's making the run in here. Last time he made the run was in the Guineas. This is mental. So I don't know how you can say whether he's talented or not talented, but he's anything but boring, Rodders.
I would say that's Graeme's most controversial comment since he's been in the studio, which is big talk. He's definitely.
I've been spoiled.
DJ, you asked a difficult question. You're going to have to answer it yourself. Where's City of Troy for you?
At the moment, if he does go out and win the Breeders' Cup Classic, I think he will get somewhere between 3 and 5. I don't think he is a Frankel or Sea of Stars. If he does win the Classic, you'd like to think he's 3rd, 4th or 5th. But like, there have been some terrific horses in my lifetime. He's probably somewhere in, as I think G-Rod is probably hit it in the head. He's probably in the top 15 at the moment anyway.
Good. Well, we will wait and see in November whether he can move up into the top brackets. That's all for today's show. Thank you very much to our panellists, DJ of Nolan and Graeme, his front page debut, a winning front page debut in the studio. Join us again next week for all the latest news in the racing world.